Right, so we've got some lovely dog or working dog and some farm inspiration tonight as well. And of course, you can do your own dogs, just anything that kind of really takes you, inspires you, really. I'm going to focus on this particular one just because I thought I would do a little bit more of a close-up of a dog's face and everything so that we can. I know lots of people are interested in drawing the dogs and everything and painting dogs. So I thought I'd go in with this, but I do love it how, you know, the different setting that you choose really helps kind of put a bit of character behind the dog and where it is and everything. So I just quite like this poking its head up through poking its head up through this like door, or you can almost see it kind of like popping its head up through a barn or something, isn't it? But I just really tickled me. But when you paint, when you're painting your own dogs and everything, it's really just you can pick up you know your own dogs as well, so you can end up picking up a few characteristics, usually sometimes the position of the face, the eyes, the face that they're pulling, etc. So I'm just going to go in really simply with now then, I chopped the end off this actually. I should have thought about that. So sorry about that. I'm just looking because when I did this one earlier, what I've done is I've chopped a little bit off the end because I wanted to make this dog's face a little bit bigger here. So what I'm going to have to do now is I'm just going to draw a line straight down the middle. So it might be, all I'm going to say is it might be different on your original sheet because it was longer to start with, was the bit of paper, but you can just do this anyway on your own paper. You can even chop a little bit off the end if you want to as well. If you want to do exactly the same, that's fine. I just need my ruler. So the reason I've gone in with a grid here is just to make it easier to kind of work out where the position of the head is as well. Now it's going in acrylic. You don't have to put this on your sheet, but then again you can if you want to. So I'm just going to do a nice lightish line, but enough so that we can see that on. If you're doing it on your own sheet and you are using acrylic, then make sure your lines are super light so you can rub out this one that's crossing over, or you can actually just paint over it anyway. It will paint over. But yeah, it's like when you're drawing faces as well. Sometimes if you've not done a dog's face for a while, it is quite helpful to have a little bit of a grid because you can see. So I'm actually going to really kind of concentrate on the dog's face. I want to get all that expression and everything in. And I'm just going to really just pop out a few little parts of the dog so I get a general idea to start with of whereabouts the face comes to. But from there, I'm going to really go in and get the eyes in and everything. And then from there, what we'll end up sometimes doing is just shifting some of the outside bit that we've provisionally put in a little bit. So I'm going to start with the head. And again, this will come up because I've trimmed this a little bit. It'll come up a bit higher because I'm trying to make the dog's face a little bit higher. So I'm just kind of bringing this out to whereabouts I kind of think the edge of its head is. But this isn't going to be a definite. I am going to move it out a little bit there, actually. Let's move that up a little bit. So this is the bit that I'll end up shifting and, on this outside line here, because I really want to kind of move it. So there's kind of dog's ear here. There's quite, what we'll learn as well when we're doing fur is that we can't always see all the elements of the dog. So again, this is kind of like, can we see where the edge of the dog's face is? We really look, and if we can't, sometimes you can't see a position of one of the eyes because maybe half of the eye is hidden. So we have to just do like, if there's a suggestion that something might be there, we have to put that suggestion in because we can't see it clearly, and that's absolutely fine. So all I'm doing here is just continuing and looking at where the nose comes. So again, I can even use this bit of this sheet here. It comes kind of almost The chin comes down. And again, this is where I think it's going to come. But I will shift where it actually comes once I start to do it. And again, we can use a general, a little bit of an angle with our pencil and just transfer that across. So if I look now, you see, mine's quite far out of so I'm going to just alter that a little bit. This is the fur underneath, but this is why I'm saying don't set it in stone, because if you are doing the dog more in detail, what happens is once we get the eyes into place properly and then start to kind of work out, that's when it's going to change, and might just shift things a little bit. So the eye is what we really want to focus on, and that's the thing I would actually go into first and get set out first, because once you've got that into place, we can start to have a little look about what's going on around the dog. Okay. And this goes for other animals as well. What we're looking at really is the shape of things, because there's a lot of shapes in here. So we can break these down to little parts of a shape and not get too worried about it. And then when we start to look at, we'll see that the fur makes shapes, and also the direction of the fur, we can actually start to put that in, gives the shape of the dog's head as well. And then further down the lane, further down the road, then we'll be thinking about the tones and the different colours within each of these, because quite often people will say to me, how do I change the colours? Because if something's black, I don't know what to use. So we'll look at some of the different tones within black, some of the different tones within the white as well, so that we get this more 3D effect. Otherwise, if we just put black and white, it'll look flat. So it's how we get those in. So let's have a little look at the eye first of all. So on here, trying to look at whereabouts it comes quite far in the face. So you can actually look at how much fur to leave either side there. So I'm trying to find out where the eye is, whereabouts this eye will come. So let's see, it comes just up a tiny bit there. Then what I'm doing is I'm looking at the eyelid, the inner eyelid here. If we draw the whole dog's face in and then properly, and then do it the other way around, what we find is we're having to squash the face into the outside, as opposed to working it so that it fits a little bit better and more naturally. And we don't then shift this outside line if it's wrong. So we're better off just lightly doing it and then getting these eyes into place. So they have lovely deep eyes, don't they, these sheepdogs? So what I'm focusing on here is that, the actual shape of the eye. And then again, I'm popping in where the white bit is. White of the eye as well. And I'll have to pop that back in probably. So we get these nice angular, kind of like teardrop shapes in there. And it will look quite odd. Let me just come that way a bit. It'll look quite odd to start with, because we've got these, they're just kind of sticking out like that. But then if you start to have a little look around, at the shape there, once we start actually painting in, it makes even more of a difference. But we're kind of getting some general shapes and patches here where this fur is a bit darker. And a bit of the fur there. So you can see, if we start to look at some of the shapes around the eye, then that makes it easier for us then to kind of move up and out as well, like this. I'm just going to go across to the other eye now, because I'm looking at leaving this distance between where we have the fur, and you can use some of the fur if you want to, to work out whereabouts this other eye is going to go. And we can see that, you know, this one is kind of just sitting just underneath this line, but this one is just slightly further across because of the position that we're in. So we're bringing this fur out, and then we can see it's just sitting slightly below, isn't it? We've still got the shape coming in here. And this bit, you know, comes over the top, doesn't it? Like that. And then we've got the shape of the bottom lid, but then again, we've got a very small amount of the white showing here, and it's not as bright as the other little bit as well. And then I'm going to just pop in pretty much, not much see any of that white, can you? Just dark the other side of the eye there. And we can neaten this up once we start to actually paint it in, but we're just kind of getting it into place. So then again, I'm looking at the patches. So underneath here, we've got this lovely fur that's all fluffy coming round at the side of the nose, but then we've also got the fur underneath that's quite light and bright there. And that will create, again, some of the shape. And then again, we've got these patches of fur here, just above, haven't we, where it's lighter. And I'm just kind of sketching them in a little bit, just to give us, just so that it helps to kind of create the shape. And then the eyebrow, where we've got there, that comes over the top. So we're starting to pop in some of the features around the eye, nice and lightly to start with. And then we can start to see, really to start to think about, once we've got these in where we want them, I'm also going to bring this over, which is just the edge of the fur. And then start to think about where the nose is as well. So it look a bit evil now because we've just got these kind of piercing eyes, and everything will change once we start to pop that in. I am just going to bring this eyebrow up the dog here. So the dog's eyebrow, the shapes round there. And then we have this white tuft. And in here. It's amazing how it all joins up, you know, everything joins up together with it. And we have that bit of the eyebrow that's coming round. Then the dog's eyebrow on the end here. And then the rest will sort out as we go. So yeah, so just keep looking at all of these little bits of fur, and it will help kind of give you the shape of the face. So this is the next bit. So the eyes and the nose are going to be really important, and actually where, you know, where they line up to. So, you know, you can check your angles and everything. So if I look at the nose, the nose comes that side at the moment of, and I'm just looking at the distance. I'm just making sure that there's enough distance between where the dog's nose starts here. And what you've got here quite often is we've got a really interesting shape around the dog's nose, and dogs' noses are quite interesting like that. Because what you actually get is, you know, the skin around, like the dark patches around the nose as well, that sometimes actually look part of the dog's fur when you see them up close. So we can see here that we've got some darker areas where the nostrils are in there. You can't really see that one, but it's darker in a patch. So that's all we can do is actually just a suggestion where we can't actually see what's going on. So I'm just going to do that for the moment. So what I'll do is I'll put the rest of the detail in, or suggestion of the detail in. All I want to do is just do a check, like look at that angle there to the corner of the nose and check that that's in the right angle. Yes, it does seem to be. And we can do the same on the eye, same on this edge of the eye, the edge. Yep, seems to line up okay. So I'm happy with that for now. And then what we can do then is if we're happy with where the nose has got to, then we can look up under the nose and start to pop in, where you get the lip, the dog's lip area. So we'll start putting it in. At the moment, it's got quite a wide head, so that's going to narrow. And again, that's why I was saying, things do shift often. So I've got this edge of the dog here. Got his fur coming round. So I'm just going to get the mouth into place first. That is a bit wider there. Very cute. Dog's mouth. And then just bringing that up and round. Where I can see it there. And then popping in his chin. Now, if I'd have gone on my original drawing and tried to squash it all in, it wouldn't have worked. This is what I was saying, that sometimes, or quite often when we're doing animals, we do need to give ourselves that adjustment. We've got the dark there. But I'm following this up, because if I follow this line up here, it's going to move up there. And then I'm coming in a little bit nearer. Because when I look here, I've got a huge gap between the eye here. So I'm going to bring the head in much further. So I'm just going to grab my rubber. This is really often, I don't use rubber at all, but with this, it's quite helpful to be able to if there's any excess on there before we start, it just helps a little bit. I'm just going to take this out just gently. Yeah. You can see where the shade is, shadow there. Just the edge of his hair popping out. And again, it's quite high. So I'm just going to bring down the top of his head as well. We can kind of see that bit of his ear up there. And then even though I'm popping this back in, I'm still going to leave myself a little bit of room for error here. Because once I get started, you're actually really zoning in on like the patterns and everything. I'll just stop where I think it changes. So this is where I think the hair flare is going to the edge, where his ear is, just kind of poking out the side there. And I think his ears come into here, just kind of squidging out the side. And I might just pop in where I think this is going. If you're not sure about the angle, just hold your pencil up, get the angle of the stonework there. So we can see that kind of gives us a little bit of a background into actually what's happening. This front kind of edge stone in. So when you're happy is where you can obviously you can remove your grid as well. I mean, you don't have to use a grid, it's just an extra tool if if you find getting the angles not the easiest. That's a helpful way of doing it, but it's not necessary at all. If you don't want to do it, that's absolutely fine. I'm just going to take it off just so it makes it a little bit clearer. There we go. Okay. So I will then go right back to actually, popping in the starting to pop in the eyes and the nose properly with paint, because I know I have this conversation a lot and with people when we are doing dogs, and a lot of people go, oh no, the eyes, don't want to get the eyes wrong, but you won't, because you've already planned out a little bit, and you can still shift things along even afterwards. I'm going to move that little line because I can't actually see the bottom of the eye. I've seen the problem sometimes with drawing a grid, you go over the bit you want, so just feel free to rub anything out that is getting in your way now. But yeah, we just got to do it, really. I think that's the easiest way of doing it. So I think with dogs, it's really looking at the different tones in the fur. So for a start with the eyes, we've got all sorts going on with the eyes, but again, we just need to, first of all, we can get in the shape of the eye and use a nice dark colour. Like I do use black when I'm doing dogs that have got black fur, but I also use brown and blue together to make a very dark colour. I only use my dark in the very deepest of places, my black. And then because you'll see even with this fur here going around, we've got some warmth to it here. We've got some quite kind of yellowy colours. Today people were seeing kind of purpley tones in there. So you just go with what you can see, and we're going to mix, obviously we can pop a base in for some of these areas, but actually building it up around and creating that kind of movement is really important. So I'm just going to pop in. I think I've used, you could use, so thinking about the brownie in the eyes, something like, I can find it. You can use like a burnt sienna colour, a warmish brown. You can always add a little bit of tiny bit of red to it if you haven't quite got the right colour. You can use, what's this one colour? I'll put this into, I might use some of this later. This one is I think it's yeah, that's a raw sienna. It's slightly different. I'm not going to put that in the eye, but I might use it. I went to do some of this fur around here, the slightly warmer bits. And then I'm going to use some white as well. So I've got my colours lined up here. We use some white for the whites of the eye and some of the reflection in the pupil. Okay, but we can talk about that in a moment. So I'm going in with a really small brush to start with. You do want a nice brush for just to get in there. If you're going into the detail like this, you don't have to if you're not. If you're doing something much bigger and wider, that's fine. So I'm just kind of, so if your brush is getting a bit not as easy to use, just give it a little bit of a, train it a little bit with your fingers to a point if you can. Right, so I'm just going to go in. Oh yeah, that was the other colours I was going to show you. So I'm going to also pop in a bit of brown, bit of blue, a bit of purple. And violet purple as in a cooler colour. Just so we can see, about using those other shades. So we've got a colour that's not the same as black. So I am looking. And actually when you look, it is very dark, is the this is where the eye is, the pupil, just the outline of the eyelid. So I'm going to go in. Now mine is tiny, so I might need to even, in fact I am going to have to go even thinner with my brush, so just bear with me a moment. There we go. Which I'm in the studio today, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to have these to hand. Right, so I'm just putting minimal on my brush when I'm doing this, and I just apply it to the top tip of my brush for detail work. And the thing is, if we didn't quite get the right shape, it doesn't matter, because we're working in acrylic and we can go over that. It really doesn't matter. It's all about the practice, having a go. And I'm doing the opposite of what I was showing you last week, which was to hold your brush nearly at the end. Because here I do want some more control over what I'm doing. Okay. Get a lovely kind of a teardrop shape, don't you, with some of these eyes? Really lovely. And again, it's going to look a little bit intense when you put these dark colours on first, but don't worry, it'll be fine. And then here, just going to put the shape of the eye in. Right, and then this one. We're just following these shapes down and around. And again, as I said, we can, nothing's kind of lost if we do make a bit of an error. And this fur, anyway, crosses over the corner of this eye. So I'm just going to put a little bit of fur in there to represent that's happening. Dogs' eyes do have these lovely different shapes depending on the breed as well, isn't it? And also how they're looking at you. This one's just so alert. It just makes me smile every time I see it. So this darker area kind of comes over the top of there as well. So we don't have much white for the eye on this one. So I'm just going to get in a little shape. And actually the area that we do have is a bit darker, isn't it? There we go. So that's all I'm popping in for now of that. You can do the nose at the same time if you want to. I'll just pop it in because it's here, because it's a similar colour. And again, we're just looking at the shape of the nose. Do have a lovely shape. Again, sometimes it's difficult to differentiate between the shape of the nose and the shape of like the markings on the fur. But you just do what you can see. And we can put more of the the actual shape more, because this like comes to a tiny point down here, but the actual nose comes round. But we'll highlight that anyway. Pop on some of the shadows and the darker areas of this nose. So I'm going in with the darkest first, which is kind of around the edge, isn't it? When you see where the shadow is, it's like creates a shape.
Barry, what's the matter?
I'll just press pause and no.
Oh.
Hang on. Yeah, so just have a little look at kind of where the darker areas are on the nose and start to, and again, it's like a series of shapes. That's what we always say, isn't it? It's so true. So the darker area, the very dark area is in the nostril here. And we get this area of light on the top and then an area that's quite in the dark over here. And that's all we can do. And really, your brain makes sense of that. Anyway, so it's not a big deal. So what I would do, where it's slightly lighter, I wouldn't say it's white. I'd say it's a bit of a tint. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that white and mix it on the palette. Actually, it feels a bit bluish, so I'm going to pop a bit of blue in there. Maybe it was a bit much. I'll try that on there. It might need to be a bit lighter actually. But again, it's why we need to just try out our colours, isn't it? So I'm just going to kind of pop in what I can see that's slightly lighter. I can always lighten it up. That's the thing, we can always add these layers on, so it's not a problem. If you put something down, you think, I don't really like that. And then down here, we can almost see a bit of a reflection or something like where it's catching the light there. So I'm just going to go in with a brighter highlight there, a lighter, even lighter one beside the nostril. And I'm going to add a little bit more light to this area here. Just going to blend it in a little bit. I'm also going to go and pop a darker one in. Right, so I'm going to leave that nose now and come back to the eyes, because at the moment we're looking, I always think without any colour in, dogs always look a little bit wolf-like. So I'm going to pop some colour in there now. I'm going to use some of this lovely kind of reddy colour. I'm really just going to go in and cover all of that nice and carefully. And when you're doing it, if you're thinking, oh, it's a bit too light, then just add a little bit of a dark brown to it. Until you get the right, the one that you think is best one. And because we're gonna actually add some different colours into these eyes anyway. This is our base really to build up on. Right, so I need to kind of continue on here with this. So I'm going to pop in over the top. I'm going to go in with a dark colour, but I'm not going to go in with very black underneath because it's not as dark as this outline. I'm going to go in with this brown and bit of a brown and a purpley mix, so that it's dark, but it's not as dark as black. And I'm just going to carefully pop whatever the shape is that I can see. So we know what we know is there's going to be there is the pupil, but we don't always see the actual shape of the pupil. We might just see some of it underneath. So all you can do is pop in what you can see. Okay. And if that's half a pupil, that's half a pupil. It might be as well, there's a different shape in there where you can see a slightly darker area. If it is, pop that in. One area that's a bit darker. And then what I'm going to do is with the, I'll just show you a slightly bigger version of it. No, that's fine, but it's where you get, where we've done mist before. I'm just going to take, because this isn't really bright white in all of that, we don't get the whole of the reflection really bright white. So what I'm doing is taking a bit of white here and thinning it down so it's a bit more translucent, like we would do if we were doing mist, so it just covers the eye a little bit. So I've got to wait a little bit to make sure that's a bit dry, otherwise it's just going to kind of, it'll just run into it. So it's still a little bit okay, that's drying now. So what I want to do is take that watered down white, so it's not really bright, and we get these shapes, don't we? So this one is, it's almost like triangle on the eye here. I'm going to pop that in, and it's slightly watered down this bit. I'm going to do the same over here. Look, we've got this like almost, that's like really interesting as well, a shape there that we get. Comes right up to the top of the eyelid there. Get two shapes, one there and one there. It's almost like it's a reflection of something interesting, isn't it? But then what I'll do is go in and look at where you get the most white, and where it's brightest, just pop that in. Not watered down, but nice and bright. So this does happen with reflections, that some areas pick up the light more than others, so I think it's there. I think it's there in the middle. Okay, and then that helps our eyes become much more glassy and behave much more like, you know, we would see in a window where you get a bit of a reflection. And then I'm just going to pop in the whites of the dog eye here, and I can just carefully get the shape back to where I want it to be. And if you make a mistake with a shape, it doesn't matter, because you can go over it with the darker colour. So I've kind of gone a little bit in too far, so I'm going to, when that's dry, I'm going to go back and pop that back, but just be mindful. But then these inner corners are slightly darker, they're not quite as white, are they? So I'm going to use the watered down white a little bit to pop that in, that shape. There, it's very tiny there. Okay. So we make a lot of progress, you know, just on the eyes actually makes your painting really start to stand out. Pop back, make it sure it's dry enough to do it, but just pop back. Just pop back this darker area here. Right, okay. So then, you know, you can always come back to them, but This is where I'd really start to look at the shapes and things that we've got and the colours there. So I've kind of gone in with these darker colours to start with around the eye. I'm just making sure I've got those the right shape. You know, and if you need to make any adjustments, you can. Like I'm just looking here. What I'm going to do now with my very dark, so I'm looking at the darkest colour, which, you know, we've got some really dark areas here in the shadow here, the nose. I'm just looking at where the other patches might be quite dark, but I'm going to try and maybe break it up by popping a tiny bit of blue in with the black. Because what we tend to find is, this is quite dark here anyway, but that depending on where the, you know, where the light is, we get sometimes a bit of a blue tinge in there. Sometimes it's a bit grey. So we're really starting to look now at these shadows and pop these in. So I'm just working on getting this kind of patch underneath the eye, and then I'm looking at how it goes around and up, and you can actually start to, you know, use your brush if you want to pop in the shape. We'll use another brush to kind of break it up anyway and stipple in some colour. So we can start to look at the direction of the fur as well. I'm just looking at this really dark bit around the eye here. And that really helps us start to kind of work our way around. We're following this up. I might come back to this patch up the top here anyway, where the eyebrow is. But I'll just put a few bits in for now. Right. Okay, so we're starting to kind of pop in, you know, following around these areas, but now I'm going to work in the other shades around the eye as well. Now, if you wanted to use a similar shade on the other side, depending on what colour, you know, dog that you are doing and what's going on there, I'm going to follow this round look. This is where I can see, and I'm just kind of popping in fur marks just by kind of dotting it on. But it is a bit, you know, it is slower if you do it this way, but sometimes it's quite nice to really get a sense of the pattern of the fur and just enjoy actually getting pulled into it. There's nothing wrong with taking your time with it. There's another bit here where the eyebrow comes. Darker in there. And you just start really, it's a lesson in observation, is this? You really start to look at what's going on. Just going to put in the other side of the eye, so we get this light patch up the middle. So I'm just going to pop in some of those. Sometimes it's easy to pop the darker patches in, and then you can see where you are. And then this side down here, I'm looking at that as well, because what we've got is we've got this lovely kind of brushy eyebrow and these lighter colours coming in here. But then we've got a lighter area under the eye there as well. And then darker again. you know, we can just keep moving it and adjusting and until we're happy with where we've got it. So I'm going to stop there for the moment and just have a little look at some of the other tones we've got. So again, have a really good look around the dog's eye that you're doing and have a little look at what the shades are. So I've got some that are a bit warmer, so I'm going to pop those in. So I'm going to use a little bit of that raw sienna. It's like burnt sienna is more of the reddy brown, and raw sienna kind of leans towards more yellow, like a yellow ochre. I'm popping that in, but you could use like something else. You could use a bit of Naples yellow, a bit of orange. There's all sorts of colours that you can go for. I'm just going to make a tint with white. See me doing that there. So I'm just going to get some of these that are slightly warmer in here with my brush. It's just all good fun, isn't it? A little bit on here. And I'm just going to dotting that in. And then we've got some over here. Just in the colour. That in there. It all starts to come together bit by bit. And there's some right over here, but I might have to pop that over the top of a darker colour actually once I've gone in. So we're just like looking at what we can see, and then we've got all this lovely colour here. We've got some, I can see blues and purples, and then you've got the white coming over. So what I might do there, I'm just going to mix up with my black, just a very slightly different black. Say slightly different black. I'm not going to make it as dark because this is going over the top. So I'm going to just pop in. I'm going to add a little bit of this blue to it. Just so it's not quite as dark. So I'm just going to kind of follow this shape down here because we do need a darker base underneath to be able to actually see the colours that we're putting on, basically. Yeah, you can shade the whole thing in. I try and keep it a bit directional because you still get some of those nice brush strokes underneath. Builds it up into this picture. So I'm just going to make that slightly dark, slightly lighter underneath where this is going to go here. And then before I move on to making this last bit really dark as a contrast, I'm just going to then go and get some of these, think about the colours. So it's almost like you can work in little patches because the way of dog's face is, it really lends itself really well to that. Now I am just going to pop in a bit of a lighter area before I move on that I can see under here, under this dog's eye. I didn't get there earlier on. So yeah, so think about the colour. So I'm going to go in with a purpley tone, and I'm just really, all we can do is have a little look at what we can see and try and make a colour with it. So if I make this into just a tint, I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to put some white through, but I'm also going to put this through because that's what I can see. And just get some of the shapes that we can see over the top, layering over with the brush. Now you can get brushes with like fine hairs on the end, like a fork, and they're nice for this as well. So that looks quite blue. I'll go over with my lighter colour now. So I'm going to go over with some whites now. And I might put the tiniest tint of blue just by rolling my brush that's been in, you know, just to kind of get the last bristles. And we're creating all of these shapes over the top. That's why it's important to have those base colours in the first place underneath it. Okay. And then the top, so the same again, it's only in the top bit here, it needs to come over the eye. Okay. Might be there's like little dots in this, you know, you've just got to kind of look at the pattern that you can see there. Let's have a look at this side. So we've got that's slightly different, so that's a bit darker, that's that darker blue colour maybe. And we've kind of just got it breaking up into this fur here, so you can put the darker one into the lighter one, and the lighter one into the darker one, basically to break, you know, to make it more natural, to show that the fur crosses over, because it does. You get both tones in there. Let's have a little look. So this bit here is a little bit more lighter in parts. I'm just going to weave that through that colour underneath and go in with this, bring in some of these colours through. And again with some of the lights, and I'm going to do this last little bit for a moment and then take a pause, see how everything's getting on. I know it's quite in depth once you get started on it. Okay, pause there. And we're just building up, so it will look a bit patchy until we've got the other elements in place, but as long as you're kind of following the different shades and then the directions, it will all just come together. So I'll just take a pause there. Okay, so we're just going to keep going with all of these different colorways. Keep popping them in. I'm going to go in with some of my really dark ones now, because I'm just going to go up a size brush. I'm going to go in with some really dark ones so that we can see the contrast with the others that are blue blacks. And that's quite important, is to get contrast with whatever color you're doing. So I'm now just going to kind of pop in the other colors that I'm seeing through here. I've just realised I've not done any testers on here. It's all on my pad tonight. Let's see. Now you can go in with white paint if you want to go in to this area here where the brightest are, then that's by all means absolutely do that. Especially where you want to overlap, where you can see, you know, where the fur comes into these areas here. You'll want to try and get some of that lightness in there. Like this. We're just getting some of these, you know, where these lighter areas are, in those in. You've got might have a few weaves through the fur in there. And again, it's when it starts to look as though we're getting, so there's like a little bit of mark on the head there. We're starting to get some of these colours weave through. Just all starts to take shape more. You know, when you start to look really careful, you'll see the little patchy areas in there. And other times you might not, and that's fine. So I'm just using, at the moment, the back of my paper to make these. I'm just kind of putting in, this is a kind of a combination of a bit of a purple colour, a bit of white. Just kind of getting these lovely spots of the dogs, but I haven't popped white down. I've used my paper to do that. And if I've got any really big, you know, kind of bright bits, I'll pop those in after. So I'm just using this colour to get the white in there of the dog. And it starts to take shape. So we start then, even when we start to pop in some of these little marks, we start to see, yeah, there's a difference there. There's something going on. And I'll probably use that colour again over the top of the dark. And more contrast in here. I'm still going to use, even though going in with a darker colour here, I'm still going to use directional mark making. Flick up some of this lovely fur where the end of the ears are. And what the edge of the ears kind of folded, just where it folds over, isn't it? That's what we can see here. There we go. A bit dark back in there because it's missing where the eyebrow is, so we want that one in. Up some of these areas here that we've got in there. Yeah. And again at the top, so we can start to shape the top of the head as well, just by, getting some of the colour in. That's all we're doing, we're observing the shapes that we're making now. You enjoy doing books. I'm going just with this dark colour here as well. This is kind of going in with this black area here. So what I'd like to start seeing now is a contrast between, so I can get the shape basically of the lip. And again, we need to break it up slightly so it doesn't feel really too patchy. It looks a bit sad actually the way I've got him there, so I just need to just make sure. Right, so make sure I've got, again, the contrast here as well, so we can get that in. So we want to make sure that it's not kind of a straight line. It's easy to want to pop a straight line in, and a lot of the fur may come over the top, so we can do that. Look, we can just make sure, bring this side up a bit, just go in with a bit of white, and bring this over the top there. And where you've got any really bright highlights, where, down here, certainly we've got some areas that are catching the light on the side of his face here. That's where I would go in and actually put your white on, make it much brighter. All of a sudden, it just starts to transform. You've got getting all your elements in place. So I am going to bring in just a bit of white so I can flick this over as well. Where it's nice and bright. Right down the middle here as well is quite bright. Over this. I'm just going to feather over the top here with my white as well. And then we've got some over here. So we're just going in and we're looking at what we've got all the time. Do we need to make something lighter? Do we need to make it darker? This is as we're working really. So I'm looking here, we get two tones. We get a slightly darker one underneath there. That'll help us get the shape of the shadow as though it's going underneath the mouth as well. As well as getting these shadows underneath on the actual, on the actual steps. I'm going to have a bit of brown and a bit of brown and a bit purple. You could just use a bit of blue because I don't want black under there. It's not as dark as the actual dog, that shadow. But it will help create the shape if you get that shadow in. So I'm just going to do the shadow I can see behind. There. And again, you know, we can break that up. And then again, we're going to have some really dark ones actually, aren't we, under there where this crack is underneath. I'm just breaking this up a bit though. So I still want to get a bit of this white fur here, slightly less, slightly with a tint. So I'm going to try a bit of this raw sienna that I've used, this yellowy colour. And what I'm going to do is add a bit of a blue tone to that. Only a touch though, because blues are very dark, very intense. Just a tad. And then I'm still going to have to mix a white tint to it. That colour there. It's not quite dark, is that? So that's where we can play with colour a bit. I'll just take a little tiny bit out. You'll need to add white tints. Because it's quite, oh, there we go. I think we're getting there now. There we go. It needs to be quite subtle shadow. It's not too, it's not too warm. It's not too cool either. So I'm just going to take that because that will give us, create the shape of underneath as well. There we go. So now we can see, feather it a bit as well, feather it with a brush. It kind of gives us the shadow underneath. And the only thing I haven't got is this bit of shadow underneath the dog's lip here. So I want to get that in. And I'm also going to just go back over with my white because it's got a bit. I want to bring this fur back over. So we can always do that, you know, if we've put too much dark in or whatever, we can always do it. I want to just put a nice bright edge on the dog's jowl there, look. But I'm also going to need to pop on the shadow. So I'm going to go in, might go in with this kind of a start, no, maybe make it slightly darker so it's okay. So we can see the shadow a little bit underneath, so that we do need that shadow. What we're not doing is we're not kind of doing an outline of it. We're doing the shadow underneath it that we can see. Just going to darken that little. There we go. And we have a light. Yeah, slight other tones in there. So I was coming back to this white, wasn't I? Get where I was then. I'm just going to pop these white ones back in because they are very light here. Make sure we get any kind of strands. This will show up a little bit better on the when we've got the stone on it as well. So I'm going to bring up use that colour. Pop it into there. There's that lip. Make this shadow a bit darker now. Needs to come up a little bit. Not quite so. That's better. It's a little bit. It was a little bit deep. Was the jowl on the top there? So I'm just making it shallower. And we can do that. We can go over the step as well. There we go. You can change these little features as you go, as much as you want to. So, you know, by this point now, we're really starting to get, you know, the dog's really starting to take shape. So I would just continue, you know, popping these in. So I'm going to go in with my real darks again. See the difference when we're going with a really dark, you know, a black compared to another colour. So come in here. Side around the dog's eyebrow. Really dark there. I'm just bringing that through, just gently through there. And then I'll have to break it up a little bit with some slightly lighter colours over this side. I'll do that. I'm just bringing these in. Down there. Keep bringing that dark patch round. Here well, and there's little bits I need to pop in that side yet, but we'll just keep going. His head's coming through now. We can start to see. And this is where like the patience side is so important, is to think, you know, all we've done is a series of shapes, tones, and brush strokes. It's very easy to kind of go, oh, it's not going to work. But actually, when we have the patience and we just keep going, all those shapes fit together and create a bigger picture, don't they? So I'm just going to pop in a bit of this here that we can see behind. And again, we can't, you know, there's this straw bit and things is coming over, which we could pop on. Just gonna do what I think I can see. Again, I can't really see, like that straw will come over the top as well. I'm just gonna do what we think is there. I will do the directional strokes though, because it's coming downwards, isn't it? You can see the fur. Now, I don't really want that blue line in there, that white line, sorry, because there isn't a big reflection. So I'm going to pop in some of this kind of lilac-y colour that I mixed. A bit of blue, a bit of lilac, swear. Just gives us a slight. There we go, and I'm going to change it with so let's get some of these lighter warm colours. So I've got that raw sienna, this like ochre, slight ochre colour, and a bit of white. Might be a bit more blue based, actually gets a bit warmer here, so just going to okay, and then I want to go and pop in a little bit of this slightly cooler colour. Just pop this one in there. It's a bit purpley. Bit of purple, bit of white. Bit of blue. And you know that this is still too dark for me, so I need to put more white into that tint. So just got to keep adding and trying the colours until you get there. I could probably go down to my little tiny brush now again. Oops, lazy. There we go. Oh, we'll just neaten up this a little bit though, because he's a bit there we go. Neaten his pattern up a bit on his head. Okay, right, let's try this again. So I'm just going to make this look, run a few really light ones through here. And then we've got some other. There we go. So all we're doing now is just kind of like almost just going through and thinking, is there any other area that needs to have anything added? You know, any taken away? There's a few extra ones I can see I didn't get here. A couple of slightly lighter ones here. And any darker ones, so it's both really we're looking for. So I'm going to pop just a little bit more through here. Feel this part of the eye needs to be a bit more dark on it there. Patches kind of disappeared a little bit, so it's not sometimes till you get near the end that you start to look at the balance across your picture and you start to think, ah, yeah, really could do with just having this or that. Okay, so I think I'm nearing the end of where the dog's face is, and what I want to pop on with the dog's face. And quite sometimes you just think, well, you know what, I've got to the end of a session, and that's as far as I want to take something. Because we, the little bits we pick up each time we do something. What I might do, there's a few little kind of whiskers coming over there. So I'm going to pull all those over. It's not whiskers, is it? It's like little hairs. And also it's slightly dark under here, whereas I've got it quite bright. So that's something else I'd be happy to do. And then I think I'm going to leave that bit there, just kind of quickly block out some I'm just going to go in with a slightly warmer colour. There we go, that's a bit better. And again, if you really want to go back through, you can just check anywhere that you want to pop a highlight in or anything like that. You can do that. It might just be like you want to just top up where you popped the reflection in the eye or something like that. You just see the back of the dog actually there. I haven't put that one in, so I'm going to pop that in between the wall there. Underneath, sorry, it's not the wall, is it? It's underneath. I might have to do that once I've got it in. It's really where the wooden door is, isn't it? Because obviously he's got his head through this wooden door. So it's trying to recreate this area, isn't it? So I think if you've got a bit of time to spare to do that, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to use this raw thinner again, just because I'm using the colours that are on my palette actually. And I'm going to need some more of a tint. Sure. Now that's quite warm. You might want to pop a warm base on, or you might not. So if I want to take it down so it's not quite as warm, I'm going to add some of this purple mix in, just a tiny bit, very tiny bit, because it's quite strong. Or you could pop a bit of brown or something in it. So I'm just going to go, for the moment, I'm just going to go over with one. Now, yes, we could have put this in first, but actually, you don't always know. In fact, we've got quite a good shadow around there. is okay. We can actually, you know, go around the shadow, go over the shadow as well when we've done like this. Nothing wrong with putting this in afterwards, as long as it, you know, as long as it's okay to your eye. So, you know, you can start to, we've also got like quite a big shadow to put in there. You can kind of start to, if you want to, rather than just blocking out the colours, start to kind of create, you know, some kind of a texture in here, like the stone. So you could go in with that, say that layer. Like that. And just kind of start to pop a bit of texture in, just with your brush. Absolutely fine to do that. Start to kind of see it in context a bit, can't we now? And then if you wanted to pop some kind of darker colours through, you could just, you know, I would probably just, as I said, just use some of this slightly more purpley tone, maybe a tiny touch of brown. And I can just weave it through, just in some of the areas that I want it. We can almost make this darker underneath the dog as well. Create more of a shadow under him is what I meant. But I'm just kind of like just popping this on as a bit of an example. And then obviously you can do the same. You can go in with a bit of highlight. I don't want to make too much of my background because I actually want the dog to really take center stage. So I'm just going to go in with just a white tint with the first colour I added, just only in a couple of areas, like maybe the edge of this stone, just in a couple of bits, because I really do want the dog. I don't want to be taken away. I don't want to take away from what we've got with the dog because it's so lovely. And then you might want to pop in, you know, you could actually pop in a nice, you know, the crack in the wall. Now it's very dark in there. You can go in with the dark, or you can go in. I'll probably go with a bit of a brownie black. And just, you know, we can create our own edge, can't we? Whatever shape we want, really, as long as we've got an idea that it's stone. So there. And then down the other side, I've got a much thinner one. I'm going with my thin brush. Really small. Really kind of break it up a little bit. It's much less of a shadow, except for when we get to here, where it turns round. And then we've obviously behind the dog here. So you see this is where his ear is, so it comes further over. That's where the edge of the wall is, isn't it? And then this kind of jagged, you know, where this door is. And again, we can do, you know, we can add kind of some greens and things on there as well. I'm just going to go underneath so it doesn't look quite so, and kind of even him up a little bit around here. And also want to make sure we've got a little bit of a shadow behind him here, so it doesn't look like he's just got a head on the edge. Yes, we've got this, and then we've got part of his body, so we've got the wall here. Looks like there's a gap there where the shadow is. Can't quite tell. And then we've got his body just going behind, so I'd be inclined to get that shadow in behind here. quite dark in there. It shows how deep the area is. And that his body's obviously right underneath it. There we go. So starting to see the edge of his body there. That will make more sense once we've got the rest in. So again, you know, it just depends on what colours. You can have, you know, similar cone. It almost looks like the door's underneath and it's got all of this kind of wornness to it, hasn't it? This wood. So I would take a little bit of green. And again, I'm not really going to make, oops, Daisy, I'm not really going to make much of this because I don't want takeaway. So I'm going to get my green on. Green and a bit of white. I've just got a bit of sap green, but you can go really much brighter if you want. Again, I'm going to mute mine down a bit. So we know underneath, I'm going to kind of go in with this colour mainly and then go over with this. I've got a nice big brush to do this. This is like a 12. But I am working on a tiny, you know, a very small picture. I would go up even bigger. It just gives you an even feel. Really. And I'm going to go over this anyway with some of these other colours. I just want to get a sense that this is, you know, a wooden green. Green wooden door. Okay, there we go. So we're starting to get a lot more context now, aren't we, by just popping these in. I hope you're enjoying it. It's really nice. So I'm going to go in again with this. Oh no, I've got the wrong one. Got this too warm, that one. It's raw sienna, which is a bit of an ochre colour. I want to tone that right down. So I don't want the warmth in it. I'm going with white, but I'm also going to pop a bit of browning, because the brown, or you could even just the tiniest bit there, because it's a strong colour. Scraping it off my picture there. There we go. That's better. I'm just going in with, you know, we're getting the idea, aren't we, that there's, it's a bit.
Becky, I hate to interrupt you.
I'll just
work.
press pause. Hang on, sorry. Yeah, so we just keep kind of producing this texture. I mean, you don't have to either. There's nothing to say you do. You don't, you know, you can make this really, don't put much on there at all if you prefer to keep it a bit, but I'm just kind of popping something in really just so we can see where we are. And then obviously over this side, I don't know if that's like a bit of brickwork. It's quite, so again, you can pop some texture in or not. I want to go in with a bit of a warmer colour this time. really just kind of filling this in quite quickly, just so that we've got some context behind it. But you can take lots more time with it. Get some of this brickwork, properly in and everything. Just running out of time a little bit. Well, not running out of time, but going over. You could spend like a really good whole afternoon doing this as well if you wanted to. Get some shadow in here. And you can get texture in just by kind of dragging over without any water some of the paint. The thing we can pop in is just a little bit. I'm going to mix up a bit of a just a small tint. Just so we get a little bit of shadow in this fur in places. Just gives us a bit of the sense that it's actually fur. Yeah, then you can go in obviously within this background and start to make sure that you've got make sure that the shadows are where they should be, and you've got these cracks and things in there. Any textures that you want to pop in, but again, like I said, if you want to really focus in on the dog, then that's quite important. I mean, we can pop this there's an edge of a blanket there, isn't there? And you can pop that, and I suppose that gives a bit of context as to where the dog might be. The only other thing I'd perhaps think about is, these shadow bits down here. Is there anything else you want to pop in to show? This dog is, we get casting this shadow underneath. But yeah, there's lots to think about. And I hope you've enjoyed that. It's such an interesting thing to do. It's just nice, isn't it, to have a go at something new. So enjoy, and hope you have lots of happy painting with it.